Okay, Justine.
Excellent. All right. Good evening. I'm Justine Orlando, Chair of the Boston Landmarks Commission Design Review Subcommittee. I'm calling to order a meeting of the Boston Landmarks Commission Design Review on May 26, 2026 at 4 p.m. Present are Commissioners Walker, Haney, and myself, Orlando. You can participate in this hearing by joining the Zoom meeting link posted in our agenda online at www.zoom.com/J/160-779-3706 or by calling 1-646-828-7666 and entering the meeting ID number 160-779-3706. You may also submit written comment to us via email at blc@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 28, 2025 amendment extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Landmarks Commission, the public may access this call through telephone or video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All conversations between commissioners shall be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has been adjourned. If there are any media or elected officials present, I would ask that you identify yourself by using the raise your hand function on the Zoom platform and state your name, title, and affiliation. Liz, are you seeing any on your end?
No, I don't see anyone.
Okay, great. Then we will keep moving on here. All right, we have our agenda for this afternoon. We will start with application 26.0915AB, 9 KILSYTH Terrace, installation of a new heat pump and screening. We have application 26.0705AB, 133 Sutherland Road, for replacement of a front door and large picture window. We have application 26.0898AB, 1757 Commonwealth Avenue, for replacement of all non-historic windows with 1/1 fiberglass windows with low E glass. Application 26.0941 BLC for the First Church of Roxbury, for installation of new window opening and a window at the north elevation of the Putnam Chapel. And then finally, we'll have application 25.0966 BLC for the Keith Memorial Theater, the Boston Opera House, for review of the proposed signage.
Justine, that one is, they've chosen to go a later commission meeting. So
Oh,
we
I'm
won't be
sorry.
reviewing that one today. Thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. All right. So for our first design review application, we have application 26.0915AB. And this is for 9 KILSYTH Terrace. The applicant is Rachel Gary. We'll have the install of the new heat pump and screening. So is there someone present representing the project here today? And you can identify yourself by using the Raise Your Hand app, which should be under the Reactions button at the bottom of your screen.
I do see Rachel here. Liz, could you make her a co-host?
You said Rachel, Gary?
Yep, Rachel Gary. Yep.
Okay, great. Just one moment. Okay, Rachel.
Hi,
Great.
everyone.
Hi there. I'm just going to, at this point, just have you state your name.
Rachel Gary, homeowner at 9 KILSYTH Terrace.
Great. And before you begin your presentation, we'll just have staff read any staff notes into the record.
And Liz, Nick is here. Could you make him a co-host?
Already did.
Oh, good.
So staff is recommending approval as submitted. Staff has worked closely with the applicant to come up with an appropriate location. The location includes a screening and vegetation.
Excellent.
No
Thank you
comment.
very much. Thank you very much. Now we'll recognize the applicant. Rachel, if you'd like to continue with your presentation.
No problem. We're installing new heat pumps as part of a separate project this summer. There is condenser units that will be visible from the street front along the right side of the house. I don't know if the presentation is in here or might be easier with photos.
It's not in this slide deck. Dude, would you want to be able to share your screen?
Sarah. It's linked in the slide deck.
Oh, this. Oh, okay. Sorry. This is it?
Yes, thank you.
We can't see. Okay. There we
Okay.
go.
This is the front elevation of the house. The heat pumps are going to have one visible component that can be seen from street front, which will be the condenser units, and they'll be located on the right side of the house where the arrow is. If you pan down, this is a close-up view. You can see the site slopes up toward the back of the house, and on this side of the house, it's a pretty narrow sight line between the house and the garage, which is set into grade, and there's lots of trees in this area. If you scroll down to the next one. So we're going to have a condenser unit here about halfway up the hill. And then if you scroll down some more, we're proposing to put a wood and metal slat fence or concealing the condenser. And then in front of that, we're proposing to put some plantings. So I think there's one more page here, but we're just going to plant some yews because it's a shady area and it doesn't get much sun. But that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So we'll open that up for commissioner questions, comments.
This is Jeff here. I think the yews are good. Is the decorative wood slat fence really necessary?
Can you repeat that? Are the
Is
wood
it-
slats necessary?
Yeah.
In talking with Nick, we were talking about a screening element as well as plantings,
Mhm.
but if it's acceptable to only have plantings, that's fine with us as well.
Well, the yews are not going to be full height for a couple of years, right?
That's correct.
Right. And if there's no slat fence, they'll have to be trimmed back for air circulation around the heat pump, right?
That's true.
I don't know if it can be done without the wood slat. I say save the money, but Nick, you're a little more on top of this than I am.
Staff, or Liz, is it appropriate for me to chime in?
Yes.
Okay. Staff recommended both, just to make sure that there was screening and also reduce any sound pollution. So I would recommend both the screening as well as the use.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Thanks.
Nick, have you taken a similar approach in the district?
This is our typical approach when we're screening mechanical equipment that's visible from the street. Our preference would be to position these in areas that are not visible from the street, although the topography on this particular property does not permit that. So this is the next available best option.
Got it. Thank you. Brad, any additional comments?
No comments. I think it looks fine as presented.
Great. All right, I think we'll go ahead and open this one up to public comment. Members of the public will now have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff at email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview.
Justine, I'll just note for the record that I see Commissioner Ward Hyatt has joined us.
Thank you very much. All right, I am not seeing any hands raised. I think we'll go ahead and close public comment on this one. So summarizing the discussions today, I think we'll go ahead and recommend an approval as submitted at the business hearing. Does that
Thank
sound
you.
good to everybody?
Yep.
Great, excellent. Then I think we can move on to the next application. All right, we are now on to application 26.0705AB. This is 133 Sutherland Road. Applicant is Robert LeBlanc. And Robert, if you could please raise your hand so you can be unmuted as the applicant or a representation of the applicant. Nick, do you see anyone?
Oh, here we go.
Greg?
Greg Arsenault has raised his hand. Greg, you should be able to speak.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, a little technical difficulty. So yes, Robert LeBlanc is our licensed under with Renewal by Anderson. I'm Greg Arsenault, design consultant with Renewal by Anderson, working on this project.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Before
Sure.
you start your presentation,
Yep.
I'll just have staff, I believe, Nick, if you could read in any staff notes and recommendations.
Thanks, Justine. So staff recommends approval with the following provisos: that the bay window is replaced with a single solid pane of glass in the center, with 2 flanking 1/6 casement windows, as seen in the historic photos shown on the Macris survey form that was included with this presentation. That the door be a wood panel door with a 6-light fixed window at the top third of the paneled door. And these are all based on the staff recommendation, district guidelines. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And then we'll turn this back over to you, Greg, so you can start your presentation.
Okay, yeah, so looking at if we can maybe start at the door. The 6-panel door that's currently there today is approximately around 40 years old. It's not an original door. The door is a aluminum clad door, which is what is currently there with a mail slot. The 6-panel door that we're proposing with the customer is same design, extremely close, almost to an exact match in color. No change, no adding any glass, nothing, replacing everything. The reason for it is it's a clad door that is quite dented, aged, rafts, gaps, but there is no change in look. I know you had mentioned wood door. It's actually a wood clad door. It's got aluminum cladding on it. It's not an old historic door. And the reasons for everything for the door specifically is energy efficiency for the customer. And on the window, the existing window, as you can see in the photos, we'll be replacing the full unit. What they're looking to do is have a center glass in the center of the window, as opposed to two opening in each direction. It would be a center glass and one flanker on the right, one flanker on the left. Again, same thing here. Lots of heavy wrought from the 70s. This window was put in. It's not an old original, and the proposal only change would be that center panel to be the double size to let in more light and conform with what other units have done at this property, including their own. And function obviously is not going to change the two side windows. It's just really and same thing with color, sorry. And color, actually, like I just covered their colors, nothing's going to change on that one.
So that's not intended to be no tinting in that glass, just clear glass.
So it does have low E coating.
Was
And
that
after-
part of the presentation originally? The
I
low E
believe
glass?
I think you just scrolled by it where the itemized list said window 101, 102. One had a door, one had a window. It should be, okay, you're right there. Just go back down a little bit, right up to where it says 101. Right. Yep, one more. Yeah, so it's listed as the second line down where it says glass all sash high performance smart sun. That's doesn't low E coating. Yep, right there.
Greg, this is fiberglass?
Fibrex composite.
Okay. So your photo, it's really just a diagram of what you're planning on, but I'm assuming that the sight lines of the window sash and the frame will all be the same, or pretty much the same what's there now.
Pretty much the same as what's there now, yes. There was some
Okay.
finished photos included in this deck somewhere. I just don't know how far down deep it is, but there were some finished shots of customers we've done work for, yeah. But no other changes. I know the owners are on the call also at this unit. When you were done with any questions for me, I know they wanted to just get a little bit and speak to themselves.
Justine and
these,
Brad,
yeah.
this seems okay with me. I don't have an issue.
I think that the district guidelines do not allow for the low E tinted glass, I believe. Do I have that right, Nick?
Justine, that's correct. Yeah. Guideline, the guideline 11.3-18 stipulates that glass shall not be tinted or reflective coated. Just from my experience, this hasn't come up with any customers that I have had in the near past. Is this a somewhat new thing?
This doesn't sound correct, Nick.
It's an old thing, I'm sure.
Really?
Well, when low E was new, it was sort of reflective.
Correct. I know it has a different sort of cast to it, but we still have to meet energy rating on this thing, don't we?
That's the challenge with it meeting the energy rating. Yeah.
There is an exception for properties in an historic district.
And
So that-
I
Sorry, go ahead.
actually provided the exemption from the energy code in the next application. If you just want to take a look at that, there's also a link directly to that exemption.
Nick, has this low E prohibition been applied consistently in the district in the recent past?
Yes, Commissioner. We've been pretty consistent on most of our districts, including this one and Beacon Hill.
Okay. Jeffrey, do you have more questions? Because if you don't, I do.
No, go ahead.
I'm confused about the picture window. I gather that's a diagram that you were showing us with a center undivided window, and then the two flanking windows are also what, undivided or divided?
Non-divided, undivided.
Okay.
So the center two that are there today would be the fixed panel, and the right and the left undivided flankers that are your single crank casements.
And Nick, staff recommendation is for them to remain as casements, but be, I think you say 1/6, sort of simulating a double hung?
Yeah, the historic photo that we've located of this property show originally this picture window had a single solid pane of glass in the center and two flanking casement windows on the side, which were 1/6. And I do believe the presentation has that photo at the end that I included at the very end of the presentation. Sorry for all the pages. It was included.
A 1/6 Munson pattern?
Yeah, I have
odd.
I can share my screen if that's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be great, Nick.
So you can see here, this is the property in question. This is part of a pair of properties that are adjoined. And you can see this window here. It's a 1/6 window. This does appear to be the original configuration. And if you take a look up here, you can see that it appears to be somewhat of a casement window with this window open.
All right, this is sort of a cottage setup with the upper sash smaller than the lower sash.
Yes, sir.
If we're going to ask that the applicant revert to this design, why wouldn't we ask for either a single hung or double hung instead of a casement?
I suppose that's possible. Just seeing the evidence here, it does appear that it was originally a casement, but I think a single or double hung window would be fine as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure we can see well enough, but it feels unusual to me that a casement would have that kind of Munson pattern.
Oh, Brad, look at the upper right hand bay. That looks like a swing. So is that a swing out casement, or is the window just broken?
Yeah, it's a swing out.
Casement over a fixed over casement, maybe.
I think that's a little odd, huh?
That's odd. But what I'm noticing in the lower photo, maybe just to the left of the chimney, which I realize is different windows, is that the division between the upper and lower, I'm going to say upper and lower sash, is much stronger than just a Munson bar. And so I think you'd achieve that if you went with a single hung or a double hung in a way that you would not if you just did a 1/6 in Munson bars.
Yeah, I sort of agree, Brad.
And while I have the floor, if I have the floor, Nick, the district guidelines ask for wood doors even if they're replacing a previously clad door.
A wood or aluminum clad. So either would be appropriate.
Okay, and this door is Fibrex that you're proposing?
The door is fiberglass. The windows are Fibrex.
Oh, fiberglass.
Is the door correct?
And why wouldn't you do a clad door there?
We don't offer a clad door. Anderson doesn't actually make any clad doors.
Okay.
And the reasons are energy efficiency. You get a higher rating on a fiberglass as opposed to any metal cladding. But as a company, that's what we produce.
Right.
Commissioner
And
Walker, I should just mention the guidelines. We have our guidelines are very interestingly written. There's no prohibition of fiberglass doors. I should point that out.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. That's another conversation for another day, maybe.
So if the
Should we hear from the owner?
guideline, yeah, I think
Oh,
that makes
sorry.
sense. No, that's fine. Greg, can you either let us know who they are, so that we
Yeah,
can
I'm not sure
unmute them
what-
or have them?
Yep. PELL is the last name. I can't see on the screen here.
Looks like we have a Barry.
Barry.
Bell?
Yep, that's correct.
Barry, I've allowed you to present and speak.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Madam Chairwoman, and members of the commission, my name is Barry Pell, representing myself and my wife, Nancy Bloom. We've been owners of the home at 133 Sutherland Road since November of 1984. And I did have some prepared comments, which I submitted to the commission previously, but I wanted to address the issue of the windows specifically. These units were renovated in 1981, and we moved in 1984. And at that time, the covenant, there's a deed restriction that basically says that the one-on-one windows, they don't specify how many, but they indicate that the one-over-one windows, or that the single panel windows, I should say, are the standard. Now, it's possible in this picture that you're showing here that this was actually prior to the renovation and prior to the deed restriction, which I guess, I've never seen this picture, but I guess at one time, they were casement windows, very interesting picture that had 1/6, but that hasn't been the case for any of these units since that renovation and that deed restriction. All of the windows on the facade, in fact, all the windows throughout this 12-unit development are all single pane windows. And as Greg indicated, they open, it's the two windows on the side. Many of them are 3-section, like is being proposed for here, with the two side panels being the ones that can crank open. And that's the standard for all of these individual units. There are 3 units shown here on the picture that you're looking at. So, I certainly would not want to violate that deed restriction, and we certainly are looking at simply maintaining consistently what we have by having the single pane window. We're simply asking that the center partition for the center window be eliminated so that we have a greater amount of light. There's less, it's a little environmentally better, it's more airtight. And again, the window configurations, not only on the facade here today, but also on the facade on Lanark Road, of which the Sutherland Lanark development is part of it, also match that. In fact, many of them are 3-section, as I would like to match. So this change will essentially match the style of the building as required. And I think that Greg previously submitted some photos, I believe, that showed some of those 1-1-1-1 configurations with 3 sections, the middle section being a double, and the 2 side panels, the 2 side windows being crank open. That's basically my comment.
All right, thank you for that. Nick, on the deed restriction, is that something that you had seen in the past?
I'm not aware of that. No.
I'll just note, as someone who worked on an awful lot of houses and condo associations, that I think maybe we're choosing the words incorrectly. It's highly unlikely this is a deed restriction. It might be a condo association bylaw or design recommendation. A deed restriction has to do with the transfer of the title.
All right. Well, possibly I've mischaracterized it, but essentially what the requirements, and these, by the way, there is no condo association because these are townhouses, but in the deed, it indicated that essentially the facade should be consistent in terms of its similarity to the other units in terms especially of color and of course this is not a color picture, but of color and style. So in other words, the house has some historic tiles on the top which have been maintained, and the stucco is a kind of beige, and the trim is a kind of burgundy red. And all of the owners over the years have sustained adherence to that requirement, and certainly what is being proposed here will continue to sustain adherence to that, and the door color as well.
Okay.
Justine, I see Liz has her hand up.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to note that the historic photograph that Nick has pulled up, that form is from 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Pell, I'll just address your comments. And I don't know how the commission or the design review committee is going to vote in the end, but I suspect that these design guidelines or deed restrictions were written at a time before this was in a district, the landmark district, and part of the beauty of historic preservation is that old buildings are sustainable and last a long time, and we have an opportunity to correct mistakes that were made in the past. So if previous owners or developers or renovators have put in windows that lost their historic detail, and we're finding now that those windows have reached the end of their lifetime, this would be a really good time to try to recapture that historic detail. Your unit may be going first, but you said there's only 3 units facing the street, and I would guess at some point in the next 10 or 15 years, everyone else is going to need to replace their windows as well. So it is an opportunity to reclaim some of what is lost in this building.
Yeah, if I might respond, many of the unit owners, in fact, over the last several years have replaced, as you can see from current pictures, have replaced the windows. So none of the windows, not any of the windows, look like the ones in this picture. They are all single windows, either in a 1-to-1 configuration or in a 1-1-1 configuration. And in fact, I don't see anybody changing that. If we've frankly, I think, changing the shape, the configuration of the window at this point to be something completely unlike any of the other windows in the entire development on Sutherland and Lanark would really be out of character for this development. And yeah, I just it just doesn't make any sense. If you look at the facade on Sutherland Road right now, it provides a historic facade. I mean, it's this goes back. These windows go back to before the designation of the Architectural Conservation District. So they predate it. The district was formed for Aberdeen well after this picture. And in fact, what was there at the time is simply when the district was established, is simply what we're trying to replace in kind.
I think we're saying the same thing. Mr. Pell, are you opposed to putting the windows in the door that staff has recommended and that we see in the historic picture?
The windows, yes, we're not, again, the windows, first of all, it's a security issue. We certainly don't want any windows in our door. This is an area that gets break-ins, and we're definitely not interested in that. And once again, it would not in any fashion match the other doors that have existed there since before the designation of the district. So we're, every other door, not only on this side, but on the Lanark side, are all the same number of panels that we would be with the new door.
Hey, Liz.
I believe I've found the document that you're referencing in a registry of deeds search. But it's unclear. I think if you have a copy of that, it would be interesting to see that.
Yeah,
And I can
did not-
share with everyone what I've found. That would be helpful. I can pull it up.
Yeah, I guess aside from, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask Elizabeth if she wanted to summarize it for her. I know you wanted to write it very
It's
quickly.
actually quite short. I can.
Okay.
Okay, so this is it's conveyance, and really what I believe you're just describing is this section that states this conveyance is also subject to the following building restrictions. To wit, the exterior treatment of the residential building thereon shall be maintained so as to be substantially uniform to the exterior of the buildings attached thereto in regards to type and color of siding, shutters, and trim, subject also to passageway easements described in the deed. It's really blurry, but I think this is maybe what he's referencing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Okay.
That's why we're proposing that there be no change with respect to the exterior of the building in regards to the type and color of siding, shutters, and trim.
All right. So I think Brad or actually Angela, did you have any additional comments on this one?
No, I didn't.
Okay, thanks. So I think if we break it down to the two elements, so we have the door as presented. Nick, you're saying that the fiberglass option has been accepted in other cases in the district?
I will say that it is not prohibited. So we would, the commission, the Aberdeen Commission would prefer a aluminum clad or wood, but that's not currently what's being proposed. And according to our guidelines, it is not prohibited to have a fiberglass door.
Okay. And the windows within the door, we're saying that applicant is saying that that's more of a security issue on their end for that particular detail.
And design consistency.
Okay. And then we have the windows themselves. Where we are trying to compare back to the 78 photo versus the 1981 renovation. Would the applicant consider doing any sort of an adjustment to the flanking windows that were discussed?
No.
No, I'm sorry, but you know, I feel an obligation. We've lived here since 1984. I feel an obligation to maintain a consistency in appearance from a resale standpoint with the other units. And if we change it, this will stand out like a sore thumb. As I say, other owners here, I can't speak to whether they came before the commission or not, but other owners have changed their windows, and you know, some of them have put in a large center window, and you know, that is consistent with the appearance, and I think it makes it lets in light, and it's a very, you know, it's a style that has existed since before the establishment of the Aberdeen district.
I don't necessarily want to go backwards, but I believe that when the district is established, that's not necessarily a line in the sand, that also has reference to original construction detailing and prior photos. I believe, Nick, the photo that you brought up earlier was a photo that's referenced in the creation of the district. Is that correct?
It wasn't referenced per se, the photo itself. And I will say that the guideline 11.3-11 says the commission encourages the replacement of windows with those that match the original material and meet the standards for window replacement. However, and then it says, number 12 says deteriorated or missing windows, features, functional and decorative details, and ornamentation shall be replaced with elements that match the original in color, size, shape, profile, and configuration. So it's essentially saying that when replacement, it does come time to replace windows, they should be replaced based on evidence of the historic configuration. I'll also note that the district was established in 2002, and none of the neighboring properties applied for window replacement after that time.
Okay.
Question. The third unit in this condo, I think it's 129 Sutherland. Are the downstairs windows, are those currently 1/1 double hungs? Do we know that?
No, I'm sorry. No, they are not. You can. I think we have a picture in here. They are. I'm not sure it is, but no. None of the windows are 1/1 double hung. Oh, wait a minute.
I'm looking at Google View right now, and they're showing double hungs on the third floor, second floor, and first floor.
Yeah, I see 1/1.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, they appear, yeah, I don't have much to do with them. The
White
ones
frame.
in the middle, which is
Yeah.
131,
Yeah.
are like mine. The ones
Yeah.
on the, the ones on the at 129 apparently are double hung. Yeah, that's correct.
So would that give us I guess a claim of or your new window, your picture window in the center, but the two flanking windows would be double hungs versus the swing out casements? Maybe that's what we're getting at in the end here.
We're seeing a fair amount of variation between units in that photo. There are different colors of paint, there's different configurations of windows, there's different colors of windows. Kind of diminishes the substantial uniformity argument for me. I think if I could just say to my fellow commissioners, these are tricky for us because we're hearing the Aberdeen district items because Aberdeen doesn't have a fully constituted commission, and I think it's important for the district that guidelines be applied relatively consistently, so that applicants know what's going on. And I think my inclination then would be to defer to staff and staff recommendations, because staff knows how those guidelines have been applied to other projects, and the guidelines actually seem rather clear. So I think we're not voting here, but I think my vote would be to support the staff recommendation.
Thanks, Rod. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that if there is a safety concern about the lights in the door, I think that should be considered by staff. Jeff, what are your?
Tempered glass is awfully hard to break.
Well, the glass in the door is way up high. It's probably like 60 inches off the floor. And the door, the original door design is more of a not a shingle style, but probably more of a carpenter style.
If I may say, I'm sorry, if I may add, none of the doors, whether they're, I see that there are some windows that are different, but none of the doors on this side or in the courtyard, as I say, there are 12 units here, or on the Lenark side of this development have anything but a solid door without a window opening.
I think that's a lamentable loss, I think, from the original design. But it is what it is right now.
Okay, so I think, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Can we rehash what staff's recommendations are again?
Sure. Do you want to read them back in, Nick? I can do it too. I have them in front of me.
Sure, I can read them. So staff recommends approval with the following provisos: that the bay windows are replaced with a single solid pane of glass in the center with two flanking 1/6 casement windows as seen in the historic photos shown on the macro survey form as previously displayed, and that the door be a wood panel door with a 6-light fixed window at the top third of the door. End of comments.
Okay, so I think we are moving forward with staff recommendations that we would present to the full commission. All right, so we're going to open this up for public comment. Members of the public will now have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. You are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. All right, let's see, Liz looking for hands up. We have Joe.
That's good. Nick, do you want to read Helen Pillsbury's comments, or I have them up if you want me to?
If you don't mind, Joe, I don't have them up. That'd be great.
Sure. We received written comment from Helen Pillsbury. She writes, I agree with staff recommendation to restore the original window configuration. In a way, this is the ideal solution. However, if the approval with provisos recommendation is approved, provisos should also include more specific detail about frame material and size of window panes, as well as require review by staff to assure appropriate historic restoration and compliance of design and materials with relevant design district guidelines. Alternatively, I would consider replacement in kind of the current window using appropriate materials as defined in the district guidelines. This would not preclude a future historic restoration and would maintain uniform fenestration with the neighboring attached properties that are part of the same structure. What would be undesirable is a new design that neither replaces windows with those that match the original material and meet the standards for window replacement, nor matches the current configuration of windows on the property. Any change to the design of the windows would, in effect, set the precedent for future window updates on the neighboring properties. So it is important that the design approved now be appropriate for the structure as a whole. If replacement in kind is approved, it should also undergo staff review to assure compliance with district guidelines. The same principle applies to the door replacement regarding design and materials and should also undergo staff review whether a historic renovation or replacement in kind to assure compliance with district guidelines for material. In addition, before replacement in kind is considered, the possibility of repair must be investigated and reviewed by staff.
And Joe, do you
Well
want to remind the commissioners who Helen is?
Yeah,
Thank
Helen
you,
is
Liz.
Helen is a current commissioner for the Aberdeen Architectural Conservation District Commission.
All right. Well said, Helen. And I don't see any other comments. I just logistical question here, Joe or Liz. Would this still be potentially an approval with provisos, being that the provisos are pretty significant compared to the application? Or would we add in a third proviso for the applicant to return with a final shop drawings to verify the provisos are met?
I think I would vote. I mean, I would probably say approved with provisos, but to remand those final details to staff as staff has recommended. So that would be for the center window with the flanking casement windows with the final design details remanded to staff, and also with the door and the lights remanded to staff.
Great. So we'll add that third proviso. And I think Brad and Jeff, that would you be on board with that approach?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Helen is exactly right. This will now become the new standard and it needs to be right.
Great. Okay, so we are closing public comment. We are going to conclude this application and move on to application 26.0898 AB, 1757 Commonwealth Avenue. The applicant will be Jose Palencia Braceno. And this is replace all non-historic windows with 1/1 fiberglass windows with low E glass. So I'm just going to ask the applicant to identify themselves and state their name for the record. And Nick, do you happen to see any names on the call here that you recognize from this application?
I do not. I'm just looking through it again.
I do see Allison Mooney. Is that correct, Nick?
Was she the applicant?
It says applicant right in front of us. Owner Allison Mooney.
To unmute her.
Allison, I've unmuted you.
Allison, I believe you're still muted.
I have tried twice to alert the staff that Jose is not the applicant. He is the contractor I needed to hire to, as I am not the homeowner of, I don't live at 1757. So I am the owner, however. and the applicant.
Great, thank you very much. All right, will you be presenting for us today?
I would like to.
All right, that sounds great. So before you start your presentation, I'm just going to ask Nick to read in any staff comments or recommendations before you start.
Thank you, Justine. So staff recommends approval with the provisos that the windows are approved without the low E glass coating, which is not permitted according to the guideline 11.3-18, which stipulates that glass shall not be tinted or reflective coated.
Excellent. All right, we'll hand it over to you now, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I share my screen?
You may.
Thank you. I apologize for the fact that you will see my notes, but my printer is not working. So can you see the opening slide?
Not yet.
It is up on my screen. I think you can still hear me.
Yep, we can hear you and see you.
Oh, you can see me. Okay, good. But on my, I have opened the PowerPoint presentation on my screen now.
Okay,
Okay.
then you have to hit the share button at the bottom of your screen to share your screen.
Share. Oh, I see it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Entire screen. Share. Now, is that good for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, I apologize. My printer is non-functional, so I have to toggle between my two, my notes and my, oh
No
dear.
problem.
Okay.
No problem.
So this is a view of the building that my husband and I bought in 2014. I am the manager of Garden Cycles LLC, the gardener, property manager and owner in this building. So I'm hoping you will note the original door, the address 1757, which I chose to be period appropriate some years ago. The refurbished front porch, which was our first project in 2014. Sorry, yes, 2014. And the architectural detail here at the top, which I believe is called a windrose, but I haven't been able to nail that down. Also of note that 1755 here uses the same Pella Impervia line of windows with low E glass that I request permission to install. If we had a picture of 1759, it would also show the Pella Impervia window line installed 2 years ago by Avalon LLC. My application is to replace 15 existing windows and two doors. Comes with my hope to improve the energy efficiency of the building and to further mitigate the cost of electricity to operate heat pumps, all during a season when windows and doors can comfortably be open. Let's see. These 4 fields detail some parameters of my concern. The pragmatic concerns of failure of windows and doors, mass code requiring low E glass, the historic compatibility and good faith preparation as I approached the project. The existing conditions are that of the 15 windows, which are not historic materials, 13 are vinyl. No, sorry, 10 are vinyl, dual pane windows, some of which have failed or the flashing has come away from the windowsill. 3 are aluminum framed single pane windows, and neither of these materials meet the AACD standards. The 2 basement windows facing Com Ave are original, but they are beyond repair, as is the basement door so warped that weather stripping cannot be applied effectively. The two windows which are original are here in the basement. They're utility room windows, and one of them has a hole about the size of a mouse. These are this is the rear of our townhouse, and none of, as I said, none of the windows, double hung windows, are historically protected material. And please also note that this is what the one of the two original windows remaining looks like. Here is a contrast between fiberglass and vinyl. I understand that fiberglass is not specifically prohibited, but it is a good material with slimmer sight lines because of its the strength. It is also, I would like to use double hung windows with natural sun plus low E argon windows, as it is, it beats the mass code maximum for energy efficiency. I also selected a Pella rear door, which faces an alleyway for its enhanced energy efficiency. And I'm kind of going off my notes, sorry, but the new construction frame, which was suggested by the contractor I've hired, will completely seal the exterior from the interior, and the possibility of exceeding Massachusetts energy efficiency standards while presenting an attractive energy efficient dwelling is very satisfying. This shows from one of the wrapped windows the energy efficiency NRFC certification, which beats mass standards by about 20%. To previous commissioners' comments, these four buildings owned by the same company all use the pellet impervioline with low E glass. And I consulted with him before diving into this project. The energy code, which Nicholas Armada quoted, it's different from what Mr. Armada mentioned, though, 11.318, but we are aiming to replace the entire window with new construction materials, so that the energy efficiency is not only rested in the glass, but also in the frame around it. Several years ago, I considered this repair, and one of the salespeople said it's quite likely that the vinyl that was used was not insulated, so to be determined. And this is what Jose was able to suggest to me, that the historic building exemption requires a signed report from a registered design professional or SHPO rep demonstrating the compliance with threaten, degrade, or destroy the nature, historic form, fabric, or function. And the current version of low E glass is virtually indistinguishable from clear glass. Energy performance. This compares clear glass, which is requested from the staff, with a Pella Impervia natural sun. And in fact, if I had gone to a vendor and asked for clear glass, their computer program would have flagged the request as non-compliant with energy performance. I'm personally very committed to energy efficiency in any way possible. So as a summary and for request for approval, I have many primarily non-historic materials in the windows which exist. Some are failing actively and none are energy efficient. I'm looking forward, I hope, to mass save rebates on 3 of the single pane windows in the basement. This window line has been installed at 4 neighboring properties in the same development. I am eager to comply with Mass Energy Code, and hope that the staff could see that in the other windows in the district which use low E glass, that it's virtually impossible to argue for against this glass coating. So I request approval, full approval, so that we could use low E glass. Just as an aside, the electric bills in previous tenants were up to $800 a month in the wintertime. I find that exorbitant. Eversource is now allowing heat pump users to have seasonal discounts, for which I'm grateful, and my current tenants have applied. But I certainly would like to enhance the living space for the 5 people who live there in energy efficiency as well as lower cost. It's expensive to live in the Aberdeen district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Allison. Okay, opening this up to commissioners, Brad or Jeff, you guys want to kick things off?
The basement windows, one of them has looks like a dryer vent right now. Is that gonna stay?
Can you, one of the windows would become clear glass, and the other window is being used for, currently used for a bathroom exhaust as well as the dryer exhaust, because those windows are in the utility area of apartment 1. So our hope is to use a sturdy wood panel and then clear glass in the other light. I believe it was the single vent that you saw, and that is now no longer useful. It's been cut off.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Allison, when you say clear glass there, you're still talking about the low E.
For the basement windows?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm sorry, you are correct. I would, A1 Windows in Worcester offers a low E custom cut piece of glass that could be framed by the contractor.
Okay. So I think, Nick, we're back to the same standard on the low E glass for the district.
Yeah, and I'll say I'm not aware of those other properties. I'd have to investigate them, but also noting that the windows that are not in our purview can have the low E glass, but the windows that are in our purview are the ones that we have to regulate.
I'm sorry, which is where does the purview start and end? I'm afraid
You can see it from a public street.
Oh, I see. Well, you have the addresses of all of the other properties. The owner of Avalon has joined the meeting. His name is Frank Williams. He's done a fabulous job bringing back some of the most decrepit, rat-infested buildings in our neighborhood over the past, I would say, 6 years. He's done gut rehabs as well as made adjustments. So you have the addresses if you would like to investigate.
It seems to me we don't have much controversy here other than low E coating or not low E coating. I thank you for your thorough presentation. And I would certainly like to find a way to work with you on that. I'm sympathetic. And I wonder, I feel like we're balancing two things. One is sort of district guidelines and requirements, and they're consistently applied. And the other is, how does low E actually comport itself with 11.3? And I don't actually have that language in front of me. Nick, can you read that? Because it didn't specifically say no low E, it said no reflective coating.
Yeah, I'll read it to you verbatim. Let me just grab that here. Glass shall not be tinted or reflective coated. 11.3-18.
So with the understanding that I am not a regular member of this commission for this conservation district, if I were hearing this fresh, I would be of the opinion that low E glass, while at one time may have been considered reflective, I don't think it is anymore. I think most people would have a hard time distinguishing between a low E window and a not low E window 3 feet away from each other. And the performance differences is noticeable. So I don't know. I don't think, I don't want to rewrite the conservation district standards in front of a live audience. But if there is a way, possibly for this applicant and the previous applicant, to assert that a low E coating is not a reflective coating, I would be in favor of that.
I
don't-
think I have on my,
If I can just add, just Chelsea Blanchard, staff architect here. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, Brad.
Okay.
And say that actually another project that we just approved through the BLC, actually, I won't even quote that project. I forget that I said another project. I would say that low E coatings are reflective, and there are quite noticeable differences between clear glass and low E glass. Though it's less blue than it used to be, I don't think it's less reflective. And we have to sort of work with the guidelines that we're dealing with right now. So I'll defer to Joe Cornish.
Yeah, I think we have to work with the guidelines, not only as they're written, which I think actually leave room for interpretation of what reflective means, but as they have been consistently applied. And potentially we have a little trouble in that regard. Joe, you have your hand up. I'm not
Sure. I mean,
sure.
one option could be, for staff to look at samples on site, and, you could remand this to staff and staff determine whether or not, looking at a mock-up on site, if they felt it was reflective or not.
Yeah, I'm sure a Pella rep could provide you with samples.
A low E sample and a clear glass, or a non-low E sample.
A non-coated.
Yeah.
I don't think the photographs that I probably have on my computer would satisfy you, but I did, yeah, they won't. Okay, never mind.
No, I think that large pieces of glass would need to be looked at on site. Honestly, to make this determination, you can't just look at one little pane. You need to look at a large piece of glass. And I'll just further state that there are lots of new developments in window technology right now, and not all of them as good as they promise in terms of appearance.
May I ask, were you, did you see the first picture that in the title of the PowerPoint?
I've seen all the pictures. Yep.
Okay, because when I look at that first picture that I offered, I could not discern difference between the reflection off of windows in my building and the windows in neighboring buildings, which are low E glass. And Mr. Williams can speak to that, but I don't claim that my understanding is complete.
I think asking staff to have an in-person look is probably a good solution that could potentially work for you and work for the district in a consistent way.
Mhm.
I agree, Brad.
Yeah, I think all coatings are not created equal. I have a historic house. I'm not in a historic district. I kept my old windows and I got interior storms with low E, and they are definitely purpley in tint, slightly reflective. But that was, they are seasonably taken out with great effort. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but they definitely do have a purple tint. So.
Yeah, and we'll probably have to, the project that I was going to mention, we'll probably need the commission to come and take a look at some point. Just as an example to show, like, when we bend our guidelines at all, we're sort of open to second guessing our decisions. Let's put it that way.
Are you talking about Old Corner Bookstore?
Indeed, I am.
But we kind of went into that knowing that that was an experiment.
True enough. So I would say that Nick and I, or just Nick, is perfectly capable of looking at window samples on site, and
I think that's a good solution. If the other subcommittee members agree.
I apologize. I got kicked off, but back. That sounds good on my end.
Yep. I think it's the prudent thing to do.
Yes.
Okay, have we done public comment?
Actually, I don't think we have.
We have not.
Okay. All right. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussion. Please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior and
Have we lost Justine's audio?
She
Partially.
light.
We are breaking up.
Yeah.
Can somebody else read in the
Sorry about that.
We have it on the screen. We have it on the screen.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. Justine, are you able to hear us? Okay. We were unable to hear you.
Sometimes, Justine, in my experience, when you're looking down, reading your notes, then you're not speaking into the microphone, which is somewhere else.
Is this any better?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Is
Oh,
Frank-
I'm
Chelsea
so
made me
sorry,
get a
folks.
microphone.
yeah. I did.
Okay, let me start that again. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the proposed design. Comments will be timed by staff and limited to 2 minutes. Please do not repeat comments that have already been made by others. To offer a comment, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. Joe?
We received a written comment again from Helen Pillsbury, Commissioner from the Aberdeen Commission. And she writes, I agree with staff recommendation for denial regarding low E coating. In addition, the material for window frame should meet district guidelines. The AACD Commission has been consistent in adhering to guideline 11.3.8.11, which states the commission encourages the replacement of windows with those that match the original material and meet the standards for window replacement. However, if using the same material is not technically or economically feasible, the commission will allow the installation of aluminum or clad wood replacement window units that meet the standards for replacement. It's Helen's comment.
Okay. Any other comments?
May I say that Frank Williams is on and he would like to speak. I'm not sure if he knows if he's raised his hand or not.
Liz, will you make him a...
Yep, I'm going to ask him to unmute. Frank, I've asked you to unmute if you'd like to make a comment.
Yes. Hi, this is Frank Williams. I actually have the two buildings that abut Allison's building. And at the time, I do know that they were suggesting using composite at the time, and that my windows were approved. And I don't know when that changed, or because I actually had to go out and seek these windows. I went out and investigated a few brands to use on the buildings, and I ended up with the Imperva series because it was a composite, because it was a fiberglass window. I haven't got any. When I went through my process, I didn't get any pushback on the window. I'm sorry, I didn't get any pushback on the windows at all. In the type of windows, that's just my opinion right now, and I can talk to Allison a little more. I would like for you to come out to take a look at her windows. At the time that I moved on the block and purchased the buildings, her building was one of the nicer buildings on, and that's one of the reasons why I made the decision, because I knew who was beside my property. And quite honestly, and not to throw any homeowners that are currently in that block under the bus, but if you can't compare her windows in any of the windows that you're looking at to place there. It's not, no one has historic windows. The fact, I'd say that 75% of the buildings, they need to have the windows replaced. Okay, whether they do it or not, or whether they do it without going through this process. She's coming to you. She's bought a very expensive product. It looks good. It's held up to the job. It matches my windows. I don't see any purplish anything on my windows at all, to be very honest with you. And you have to understand the stock of properties that you're dealing with in that area. As much as you would like to stay with historic, a lot of people aren't treating their properties like they're historic. And for this woman to actually go through this process of improving her property and trying to put something there to keep people safe and dry, I don't understand. I really don't. And I know I went through this process. I actually had to, because this,
Sir, thank you. You're over your 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none.
May I add one comment, please?
Briefly.
In 1909, when the buildings were constructed, no one was considering climate change. It's a huge concern for me. So this is why I would really appreciate using the most significant contribution to that as I can.
Understood. Thank you very much.
you.
Okay, I think we're closing public comment. To summarize, commissioners, we are approving with the proviso that the glass be reviewed and evaluated by staff. Is that the appropriate language that we're coming to here?
I believe it is, Justine.
Is it an approval? I don't know.
I think it's a proviso.
I don't think it's an approval with a proviso, is it, Joe?
I would say it would be up to staff to either approve it or have the applicant come back.
Right. So, exactly.
Okay, so is that a continuance?
I would say no, because, staff could go out and say, this looks great, and then that would be the end of it. But I think if staff goes out and is not in favor of what they're seeing, then they would have to come back to the commission.
Okay, I believe though, don't we have to assign it to one option, whether it's an approval with provisos or a continuance? Doesn't it have to have a?
Well, I think that would be the proviso. It's approved with the proviso that staff goes out and approves the glass on site. And if staff does not approve the glass on site, then they come back, then it comes back to the commission.
Right, I thought that's what we originally said, and then that got, either way, okay, if that's a.
Sorry, I
Great.
thought it would be a continuance, no, either way. So Joe's right.
You could do a continuance, but I don't think, I'm hopeful that Nick will go out and think it looks okay.
Yeah, continuance means it needs to come back and get on a noticed agenda.
Right.
Adds time.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to our final application on design review. We have application 26.0941 BLC. This is the First Church, Roxbury, 10 Putnam Street in Roxbury. The applicant, Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, for the installation of window opening and window at the north elevation of the Putnam Chapel. I would ask that the applicant identify themselves and introduce themselves.
So Mary Margaret Earl and Thea?
Yep. I'm just letting them. Okay. You both should be able to unmute yourselves. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary Margaret, the Executive Director and the Senior Minister at the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry at First Church Roxbury. And this is Thea Masu, who is our architect from Flock Studio. So I'll just say a couple of comments for context.
Mary, I'm just going to have you pause for one moment. We'll get right into your presentation.
Sure.
I'm just going to have staff read in recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And is that coming from Liz?
Oh, I'll read it.
Excuse me, Joe, thanks.
Staff notes that First Church Roxbury was constructed in 1804 and designated a Boston landmark in 2023. The Putnam Chapel was added to the site in 1876. The interior of the chapel was heavily damaged by fire in 1983. The proposed new window will be visible from Putnam Street and Roxbury Street. Staff notes that the applicant has worked extensively with staff to arrive at this option and did show a more modern window option, which would be more clearly delineated old from new. However, staff felt that it detracted from the historic elevation and asked the applicant to revert to an option that was more sympathetic to the historic nature of the building. The standards and criteria from the study report do not prohibit the addition of additional window openings at this location of the church. Therefore, staff recommends that the proposed works approved with the following provisos: that the applicant explores design options such as eliminating decorative trim below the window to differentiate it from the existing windows.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joe. And Mary will hand the presentation back over to you.
Oh, thank you. And I'll provide a context about the location and the building, and then Thea will present information about the design itself. The Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry is a faith-based nonprofit committed to racial and social justice work. We operate out of John Elliott Square in Roxbury from this historic campus. Our programs include an after-school program for high school students, a summer employment program for Boston high school students, as well as a lot of work in partnership with the community. We operate from a site that has 3 connected buildings of different eras. One, as mentioned, is the 1804 Meeting House, which was recently restored. We have a Justice and Education Center that connects our 2 historic buildings built about 25 years ago, and Putnam Chapel built again in 1876. What Putnam Chapel is used primarily for is both our own youth and community programs, and also substantially it is in service of community gatherings. So that's a youth build graduation, Dee Dee's Cry toy giveaway, or community meetings in which the public is invited to meet with elected officials. The space is quite dim, and we propose adding a window to bring in more light into the space and connect the space with the Peace Garden and the Boston skyline, and bring in some of the location of being on this hill in Boston into the space. We have engaged the community to understand what they would like to see, and shared a couple of versions of what we would think about based on the feedback that we've gotten from the staff. And so we had several community meetings, talked to the neighborhood coalition, and were able to get strong support from the Roxbury Historical Society, the Highland Park Neighborhood Coalition, the Dynamic Seniors, and the De Normandy family, which are descendants of a prominent minister who once served at First Church Roxbury. And we have sent those letters of support to the commission. So that is the context, and I would turn it over to Thea.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mary Margaret. So as Mary Margaret mentioned, we are looking to put a window in this north elevation of Putnam Chapel in order to get some extra light into the space, as well as provide a bit more transparency from the neighborhood in and out. There is, as you can see in the lower images here, there is a peace garden in that courtyard area that is quite beautiful and used for different smaller events, that is not really visible from Putnam Chapel the way that the windows are configured now. And so what we are proposing is a window that essentially matches, if you go to the next slide, it's got all 4 elevations. There should be one more slide. Yeah, there we go. So the lower right shows the existing east elevation, and then there's an inset of the trim detail. That is a stained glass window currently that was damaged in the fire in 1983 that Joe mentioned, but has been restored. So the size and configuration of the overall size of that window is what we're proposing, which is slightly larger than the 2 flanking windows. So you can see in the plan, it would be to the north that we're proposing putting in this new window that would match the elevation number 4 window. 3 out of the 4 elevations are pretty symmetrical, and we find that the north elevation does feel like it's missing something. So just from a, general symmetrical perspective, and trying to keep with the historical nature of the other sides of the building. We don't think this is detracting by adding in a new window there. I think, as Mary Margaret said, it does have great, we did get pretty overwhelming support from different neighborhood community groups, and would keep all of the existing configuration of the trim and other detailing to match what's there. One thing I will mention as the last thing is that on the interior of the space, you can see the bump outs on the plan to the north. One used to be an HVAC duct chase. So those are newer elements that there used to be a stage at that end of the building, which was added on probably after 1983, but has since been removed for accessibility reasons. And so we would essentially, in adding the new window, have any structure for it be encased within the wall. Nothing would be visible. It would, it would blend in.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, great. All right. Brad or Jeff or Angela, would you like to kick things off?
Are there any recommendations from staff?
Joe had previously read in the recommendations.
Okay.
So I can fill in a little bit, Jeff, just in case you missed it. This applicant has come to us and worked with us quite diligently, so which we really appreciate. The original proposal showed a, as we would normally ask for, showed a quite modern window in this middle location, and just due to the age of the building and the, quite frankly, the beauty of this elevation, Joe and I asked them to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that was more sympathetic to the history of the building. And then the one proviso that we came up with after the fact would be that they not replicate all of the little like base trim underneath the existing windows, so that at least the new middle window would be differentiated in some way.
Do we have an image of the proposed elevation?
Yes, it's on the second slide.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Chesley, we did include that trim just to kind of show what that would look like from a historic perspective, trying to keep that in line, but happy to, take that into account.
You did exactly what we asked you to do.
Okay. Okay.
But then when we were writing staff comments, we thought maybe it is like, it's not differentiated enough. So losing that little balustrade trim might be a good idea, but certainly open for commission discussion.
I couldn't see well enough on the photograph that trim is sort of a faux balustrade. The existing.
Yeah, the whole thing is probably only 3 inches deep. It's just sort of an applied trim.
It's an applied applique that looks like a balustrade.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I'm curious about the decision to make the new window wider than the other two versus the same width, since the windows at the lower level, the headers at the lower level are all the same width.
Thea may also add to this, but our motivation for this change is to try to capture the incredible view, which you can't really see from these photos, but from the interior, it is a really special view of Boston from, and to me, in some ways brings the history of the location into the space by opening up. One reason why actually the Puritans didn't build this building but gathered on this site, and that, you know, the view was different, but there was a reason why this site was selected, and it was that it was on top of this hill. And so we wanted a window that, and I think originally we were proposing something bigger, but did want to kind of limit it for the historic sensibility. So we wanted a larger window to capture that view and take advantage of the view that we have, which is truly special. But wanted to, and I think, you know, I'm not an architect, but to me, this did look, we looked at a couple different options, and this still looked right. And on the other sides, there are, I think, enough resonance from the other side of the building that for us, it seemed to make sense as a proposal.
Yeah, and I'll just add that in addition to what Mary Margaret said, there's precedent on 2 of the 3 other sides for a larger sized central element. So on the east side, there's the same exact window as this, except that it's stained glass. And on the south side, there's an entrance with a larger double door. And in fact, even on the west side, there's sort of a double window that kind of mimics that same pattern.
I have 2 questions, I think. I like the direction of this. I think it's like 90% there. Can we go back to the proposed facade? So the light proportion is wider than the existing windows. Is that a conscious decision?
You mean with the individual
Yes.
panes?
The glass lights.
Yeah, so we were trying to, we can adjust, but we were trying to keep a similar proportion. The 2 flanking windows are double hungs, and what we're proposing with this would just be a fixed window.
Okay.
But we can adjust the spacing of the.
But the glass lights are not the same proportion. These are like almost like a golden section, and the existing lights are like probably like a 1:2 proportion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we could make them match closer.
I'd be curious just to overlay the original light portion to see what that looks like, and maybe become maybe like a 10/10 window.
Right.
And then my other comment is, this is a little bit radical, but what if your new window is actually a double hung that goes to the floor, and the faux balustrade below becomes like a real balustrade, so the window can be opened up.
You're getting a little quiet, Jeffrey.
Oh, sorry.
The last couple sentences were hard to hear.
Okay.
Can you say them again? Just
hold on.
Okay.
The more radical thought I had is, what if this window is actually a double hung that goes to the floor, sort of like the Jeffersonian Monticello windows,
right?
And the faux balustrade becomes a real balustrade, so you could probably actually step out maybe a foot or 2.
Right, like a Juliet balcony. Yeah, we had that as one of our options. It wasn't necessarily operable double hung, but we did have a version of this that went to the floor, and where there was a balustrade, an actual, railing.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's all I got.
Can you go back to the photo of those windows showing that elevation? I just want to look and maybe zoom in a little bit. Let's see.
Do you mean of the actual what's there now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right there it is. Yep.
Okay.
Thea, could you confirm those lattice pieces are forward of the building,
They
right?
are, yes, those are
Yeah.
not attached. Yeah,
Okay.
it's part of the garden.
It just happened to line up exactly with that.
Yeah,
window.
Yeah.
they look like they're part of it. And
Yeah, it's looking at the photo because everything is painted out white. You really the black windows just the opening itself just is so much stronger than any of the trim. In the drawing, the trim tends to look busier than than it is in reality because it's all painted out the same color. So for that reason, I think the size of the window is really important. I don't know. I would prefer the window to be the same size as the other two. To me, it looks a little off balance, but I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong.
I actually share Commissioner Ward Hyatt's concern, and I'll group it with Commissioner Haney's concern about just sort of the proportion of the divided lights. I think maybe you look at that one more time. That might be helpful. I think the question of the trim and the balustrade below, the faux balustrade below, the applied balustrade below, is really a tricky one. It's a little delicate. Is it enough of a difference to impart a reading that this is a newer intervention in this building? Or is it just enough to be annoying given that you're going to recreate all the rest of it? I don't really know the answer to that, but it kind of feels like, you've got 10 historic elements wrapped around this building, and you've taken 2 of them away. As a kind of future reader of the building, I'm not sure I would understand what that means. So I might not be opposed to just absolutely recreating the historic detail for a third time, especially if you kept the width the same. I may have zoned out, but did we talk about what the window itself is? I understand that you prefer it to be non-operable. Is this like an historic wood window? Are you proposing a clad window?
No, we're proposing a historic wood window.
And the details and the window stops and the rest of the trim would truly match what's adjacent?
Yes.
I think that's important.
Agreed.
I would want that maybe to be a proviso because I'm not sure that's clear in the application.
Can I just build on what you were saying, Brad? I think I really do prefer the window to be the same width as the other two. And the reason is I think that there's something, if you go back to the photo, I think that there's something that unites what's happening in the stone foundation with all that trim. And it seems that if you would kind of bleed out too much on either side of that, it just, there's something nice about having everything kind of stacked. And I would also support kind of faithfully recreating the trim, but I could also see having all that trim, having the balustrade, but doing it in a slightly more simplified way, if that's possible. But I kind of feel like the wider window just doesn't really fit with the balance of the facade. And I would also say that I'm not exactly sure your existing drawings are perfectly accurate because these do not look, these lights, the muntin pattern does not look quite as vertical as what you had in the drawings. This looks not, I think Jeffrey rightly pointed out, it looked like a 2-to-1 proportion in the drawings where this looks something a little bit less than that. So
This could be a slightly wide angle photo. I'm sort of curious if
yeah,
if the
maybe.
architect can verify that.
I think it is, yeah, because I mean,
Okay.
we had the building laser scanned, so it should be fairly accurate.
Interesting. So that is a little deceiving because this photograph, the proportion of the lights
looks better.
look very nice.
Yeah,
It does look better.
Yeah, it's just very relaxed.
We
Although-
can double check it, but yeah.
I've been the I've suffered inaccurate laser scans, so it's probably
Yeah,
worth, for
sure.
something as important as this, probably worth double checking.
I do want to, I don't know if there are other comments. I do want to talk again about the size of the window. You know, for us, you know, we have undertaken this quite seriously with a lot of deliberation and engagement of the community and thinking about our goals. And this kind of investment of effort was undertaken to make a real change in a building that the interior really needs, you know, needs a few improvements, but a natural light is a real part of it. And for us, you know, we didn't undertake it to add another third window. The two windows are, you know, the two existing windows don't allow much view. One is over a set of stairs and the other is kind of off to the side, and neither really afford much of a view at all from the inside looking out. So we are looking to really make a significant change in this experience of being in this building, which I do not think that adding just a third same size window will accomplish for us. You know, I think that, you know, again, we've really tried to be very deliberate and be in conversation with the community about, you know, including the community values, the historic nature of the site significantly. It's a very important building in the community. So I do hear that your preference for a window that looks the same size, but I guess I would just come back and say, you know, I would ask for you to consider the larger window. Again, you know, defer to your expertise as, you know, historic preservationists. To my eye, the larger window, it still looks aesthetically pleasing and congruent. The view from the street it looks like it fits there, and I think it is congruent with the other sides of the building.
I would just also add, sorry, just real quick, the louver above the proposed new window is approximately as wide as the window that we're proposing. So I understand that the lower window doesn't match necessarily in the basement, but also one of those is you know, closed in. It's much less about the basement level than it is about the main chapel space.
Thea, do you mean the fan light louver above?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's separated by.
Yeah.
So what is the width of those existing windows? Because it looks like it's probably 3'6" or so.
It's
Maybe.
only, yeah, it's 3'9".
3'9". Okay.
We're proposing a 6-foot window. Same height.
And the height is.
The height is 9'2".
So it's a very tall window, right?
Liz, you have your hand up.
Waiting patiently to be called upon. I want to remind our commissioners that, what the relevant study report language is here, and that has to do with new additions and exterior alterations shall not destroy historic materials and features and spatial relationships that characterize a property. And really that the new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible. And, these are all very tricky things, but it is one of the Secretary of the Interior standards on rehabilitation for historic buildings. So, I do want to just bring us back to what the study report says. And, I want to kind of, remind you what staff recommendation is that we are trying to really balance a new intervention in on a historic elevation. So, what we were recommending is, not having as ornate trim, that's a typical thing that happens with windows on historic elevations, new window openings or door openings. So I just kind of wanted to bring everybody back to that piece that's part of the study report.
Yeah, I think we left out in our staff comments that when this project was first brought to us, we didn't think a window opening was appropriate at all. So we've come a long way with the team to develop something that we thought was more appropriate.
And I think what we're trying to get at here is somewhat the proportion. So I think staff were feeling that with the window being not the same size as the others, it was falling in line height-wise, on that elevation, but was distinguishing itself as a new feature because it was, a different width. So I just wanted to give some clarification into what the staff recommendations were, what the thought process was there.
I think balance is the operative word, and the metaphor I used before about sort of where are you on that scale of repeating or replicating detail or not. And I think there is a place where you replicate most of it, but not all of it, that is often unsuccessful. I'm a little sorry we're not seeing the modern one or maybe a couple of more modern ones, because I do think that's possible. But I'm worried about a sort of general guideline of use this trim but make it simpler, because that can often end up looking like one of our previous applications tonight, where people change out windows in unsympathetic ways.
Do we want to reevaluate the proportions based on the elevations, or?
I think so. I think the proportions need more study, whether or not it's a wider window or not. I think looking at the exact width of it relative to the proportion of the individual lights of glass is probably a worthwhile thing. Mary Margaret, do you have the ability to do a little more work and come back?
And when would we be able to come back?
You could, presuming that we could sort of pull together some of your older materials and ask you to do this new work, which I don't think is too much of a drawing effort. You could potentially come back for the June hearing. I think it's June 23rd, if I'm not.
Yep, 23rd.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. So I think that would be a continuance from today.
It might just be a Photoshop effort instead of a drawing effort.
Yeah, true.
Can I just clarify, are you looking to see the proportions change for the Muntins of the window or different options for window sizes or both?
Well, I think when you change the proportion of the individual lights of glass, you're going to end up changing the width somehow. So I think there's an option for a bigger window that has proportionality to the existing light. I think there's an option for a window that replicates this window. And I think there is an option for a modern, or let's just say a visually distinct intervention that is quite clear that it's a much later film.
And staff can help you through that little exercise to get you ready to come back.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chelsea.
All right, I think we'll open this one up to public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff at email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping, issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. I am not seeing any hands raised. So with that, we'll close public comment, and we'll summarize this as with a recommendation to the full commission as a continuance to allow the applicant to evaluate the proportions and elevations of the elevation of the window.
Great.
Great.
We have a last minute hand raise.
Okay.
Erin, is your comment for the project review that we were just conducting? Let's see. I've asked you to unmute.
Perfect. I can unmute myself. No, it's not. Thank you so much. This has been a great meeting. I've been on since 4 p.m. I'm sure you have a robust agenda here. I was just actually wanted to give comment on the Ablana Brewing Companies. It said that would be covered in today's agenda. Is that going to be covered today, or?
It will be covered today later. We are about to begin the business hearing, and it is on the business hearing.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. Is there any way that I can provide comment in another forum? I just can't stay on the call for for much longer.
Sure. Right. You can email blc@boston.gov.
Okay, perfect.
And we monitor our email address during the hearings. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you much. Bye-bye.
All right. Are we ready for administrative review to read in? Okay.
Yep.
Great. I will now read in administrative reviews into the record. Okay. Application 26.0864 BLC, Berkeley Building, 422 Boylston Street, installation of wall sign, blade sign, and window sign. Application 26.0893 BLC, BOND-HAMPTON House at 88 Lambert Avenue, Roxbury, installation of a chicken coop and enclosed run. Application 26.0942 BLC, 50 Broad Street, repointing masonry and repainting of windows. Application 26.0950 BLC, Christian Science Church Complex, 200 Mass Ave, completion of necessary maintenance of the existing concrete arch and adjacent garden walls at the publishing house. Application 26.0938 BLC, Franklin Park, 278 Canterbury Street, installation of fabric shelter structure at existing park ranger paddock. Application 26.0922 BLC. National Shawmut Bank Building, 440 Water Street, installation of 2 blade signs and 4 wall signs. Application 26.0948 BLC. Old Corner Bookstore, 3 through 11 School Street, installation of 7 temporary ground level signs interpreting the history of the Old Corner Bookstore complex. Application 26.0884 BLC, Blackstone Block, 1 Union Street, roof antenna replacement and equipment upgrades to existing telecommunication array. Application 26.0881 AB, 4 Chiswick Road, limited reconstruction of the existing brick and cast stone masonry parapet, restoration of the remaining conditions not being reconstructed, removal and replacement of limited areas of the roof edge fascia with new 16-ounce copper fascia to match the existing fascia profile, limited replacement of the existing damaged, cracked, and spalled cast iron stone masonry with new cast stone masonry with matching stone face dimensions and profiles, patching of limited areas of damaged cast stone masonry with patching mortar, cutting and repointing of the remaining areas of the brick masonry parapet, cutting and repointing of select areas of the brick chimney at the top floor and above the roof line, cleaning and recoating of the cast stone masonry at the parapet with new elastomeric masonry coating to match the current coating cast stone color. All replacement face brick, cast stone, and mortar is to match the current existing materials. Application 26.0909 AB, 24 Leamington Road, replace all windows on facade with 1/1 wood windows, spot repoint of masonry. Okay. All right, do any members of the commission have any questions or comments on the administrative review? All right, seeing none, so we will make a recommendation for approval to be made at the business hearing. And with that, I think we're moving right into the business hearing.
All right, thank you. Let me just give me 1 second to close a few windows. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Walker. I'm the chair of the Boston Landmarks Commission. I am calling to order this meeting of the Boston Landmarks Commission on May 26th, 2026 at 6:10 p.m. Present are Commissioners Orlando, Mac Jones, Hoffman, Gagne, Ward Hyatt, Haney, and myself. Did I miss anybody there? All right, and also present with us
John
are
Amadeo.
I did not see John Amadeo. Thank you. So 3 pages of little pictures here. Also with us are Boston Landmarks Commissioner staff, Executive Director of the Office of Historic Preservation Kathy Cotteritas is here. Deputy Director of the Office of Historic Preservation, Elizabeth Sherva, is here. I'm going to go in the order I see people. Joe Cornish, who is Director of Design Review. Sarah Lawton, who is, Sarah, I have to remember her title.
Preservation Assistant.
Preservation Assistant, thank you. Chelsea, are you staying on? Are you here? Yes, I see Chelsea Blanchard,
Yep,
staff
I'm here.
architect. Is Nick staying on?
Yep.
Nick Armada,
Yes.
who is Senior Preservation Planner. I think that's everybody.
That's everybody.
Thank you. Let me briefly review the agenda for tonight. I know a previous member of the public had a question, so I'll just go through that quickly. First, we're going to consider the ratification of the meeting minutes from March 12th. We then have a number of design review items from the design review subcommittee that met earlier this evening, including administrative reviews. We're then going to hear a demolition delay application for 123, 127 Heath Street and 117 Heath Street. We're going to hear those together, but vote on them separately. And then we have an advisory review on the Mission Church Complex at 94 St. Alphonsus Street. And there was an item on the agenda, just in case anyone's here, for the Mission Church. No, not the Mission Church, for the Keith Theater.
Keith Opera House.
Keith Opera House. That item has been pulled. So if you're here for that, watch your mail for a new meeting date for that. And staff updates and adjournment. Let me go back to the legalistic part. You can participate in this hearing by going to the Zoom meeting link provided in our agenda online at www.zoomgov.com/j/160-779-3706 or by calling 646-828-7666 and entering the meeting ID 160-779-3706. You may also submit written comment to us via email at blc@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 28, 2025 amendment extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Landmarks Commission, the public may access this call through telephone or video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has been adjourned. And I would now ask if there's anybody here for the media or representing elected officials. Would you identify yourself by using the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform so that you can be unmuted, and then state your name and affiliation. Give people a minute to do that. Not seeing anybody. We had a couple of representatives earlier from city council offices. They have dropped off. All right, let's move on to our first agenda item, which is consideration of the meeting minutes of May 12th. And I would open the floor to commissioners for any comment or corrections on those meeting minutes. Okay. Hearing none, I would accept a motion to accept the meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll make that motion, Brad. Justine?
Thank you. And a second, please.
I'll second. That's John.
John Amadeo, thank you. All commissioners present would be voting. Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the meeting minutes are ratified. And we move on to our design review, recap, and vote. I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4 voting items plus administrative reviews. And I will ask Design Review Subcommittee Chair Justine Orlando to take us through those.
Thank you very much. So the subcommittee met earlier today.
We had the privilege of seeing some of the Aberdeen district applications. So we started out with application 26.0915AB. This was 9 KILSYTH Terrace. This was for the installation of a new heat pump and screening. The application is consistent with the Aberdeen district, and therefore the subcommittee recommended approval as submitted. So I'll go ahead and make that motion, Brad, to approve.
Thank you. And is there a second, please?
Second that, Jeff Haney.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Okay, next up, we have application 26.0705AB, 133 Sutherland Road. This was an application for an Anderson package for replacement of a front door and large picture window. The application was not consistent with the district. What we recommended was approval with the provisos as previously issued by staff, which include that the bay window is replaced with a single solid pane of glass in the center with 2 flanking 1/6 casement windows as seen in historical photographs shown in the Marxist survey form. Second, that the door be a wood panel door with a 6 light fixed window at the top third, and then a final proviso for details to be remanded to staff to evaluate and confirm compliance. And so I would like to make a motion to approve with the stated provisos.
Make
Thank
that
you.
motion, Justine.
Jeffrey, I'm going to take you as a second. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo, Commissioner Amadeo. Come back in a second. Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
I vote yes.
Brad, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's
Mute
okay.
button was elusive.
Sticky button. All right, we can move on to the next one.
Great. Application 26.0898AB, 1757 Commonwealth Ave. This application was to replace all non-historic windows with 1/1 fiberglass windows with a low E glass. This was a pillow window that was utilized within the neighborhood. The low E glass or tinted glass, coated glass is not consistent with the standards. What we recommended after a lot of review and deliberation is approval with the proviso that staff will evaluate the proposed glass on site and, if appropriate, accept the proposed product. So I'd like to make that motion to approve with provisos.
Thank you. And a second, please. Jeffrey.
I'll second it. Angela.
Thank you, Angela. Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you.
All right.
And then finally, we have application 26.0941 BLC. This is the First Church Roxbury, 10 Putnam Street, Roxbury. So this application was for installation of a window opening and window at the north elevation of the Putnam Chapel. There was some deliberation in regards to the sizing of the new opening and the style of the window, as well as the trim. So we are recommending a continuance so that the applicant can work through some of those details a bit more. Hopefully we will see them next month after they've reevaluated. So the motion would be, so I'd like to make the motion for a continuance.
Thank you. And is there a second, please?
I'll second that, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Great. And then we had several administrative items read into the record during the design review subcommittee. I would like to make a motion to approve all of the administrative reviews listed here and on the following slide.
And is there a second?
Jeff Haney seconds again.
Thank you. Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, so that concludes the design review items, and we move on to, as I said, a sort of pair of related demolition delay applications. They are 123 through 127 Heath Street and Mission Hill, and an adjacent property that I believe is under control of the same ownership at 117 Heath Street. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the Boston Landmarks Commission should specify a demolition delay period pursuant to the Boston Zoning Code, Article 85, Chapter 665 of the Acts of 1956 as amended to be applied to 117 Heath Street and 123 through 127 Heath Street. Tonight's process will have one step instead of the allowed two-step process because the applicant has waived their right to ask for a waiver of delay based on a review of feasible alternatives to demolition. Tonight, the commission will determine whether the buildings are preferably preserved and the 90-day demolition delay is invoked. We will hear about both of the buildings together since they are historically and functionally related. At the end of the presentation and comments, we will be entertaining a vote for each of the buildings separately. And I would now ask Boston Landmarks Commission staff to please review staff's findings regarding the significance for 117 Heath Street and 123 through 120 Heath Street with the commission, and the chair recognizes Chelsea Blanchard.
Brad, before we begin, I just want to recognize Liam Remus from Councilor Fitzgerald's office has joined us.
Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
Thank you very much. Brad, I'm going to condense. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not looking at that screen. I'm going to condense comments for both of these Article 85 applications into one statement. So what I say for one, it stands for the other as well. Staff has determined that 117 Heath Street and 123 to 127 Heath Street are significant within the meaning of the ordinance, specifically for section 85.5.3C, which states that the buildings are historically or architecturally significant because of period, style, method of building construction, or important association with famous architect or builder. And also section 85.5.3E, which states that the buildings are, the buildings are ones whose loss would have a significant negative impact on the historical or architectural integrity or urban design character of the neighborhood. And I will give you a little bit of context for those statements. And I should mention that as I'm speaking tonight, Liz, if you don't mind flipping through all the slides that were provided to us. So our slides for this evening are taken from a capstone project done by Patrick Powers, who is a preservation studies alumni from Boston University. And so the two buildings that we'll be talking about tonight are known as the Alley Brewery and have become more commonly known as the Ablana Brewery. The Alley Brewery on Heath Street in Mission Hill is distinct for its ornate architecture and its contributions to the history of breweries in this area. The Alley Ablana was one of 31 Boston area breweries in the late 19th century. Most of these Boston breweries closed when larger national companies such as Anheuser-Busch grew in popularity and gained a competitive edge over smaller local companies, offering beer that was cheaper to produce and was readily available. The Ablana complex is now comprised of two buildings. The main brewery building, constructed in 1885 at 123 to 127 Heath Street, and then the later 1892 bottling plant, which is at 117 Heath Street. Other buildings historically associated with the brewery are no longer extant. Named after its owner, John R. Alley, the brewery was one of the most technologically advanced when it was constructed in 1885, and it was known for its production of Ablana Irish Ale. John Alley's initials adorn a granite plaque on the east facade of the brewery building, and the complex was an active site for several different manufacturing works until 2004. Right after the close of the brewery, it was used as a woolen wares warehouse. It has also housed automotive mechanic manufacturing, so it has had many acts. Otto Wolff, the building's architect, designed several other local breweries in Roxbury, including the Union Brewery on Terrace Street. Surrounded by modest 2- and 3-family houses, the brewery's imposing height and iconic facade that still retains a gated entrance marked its prominence in the neighborhood. In 1985, the complex was surveyed by the Boston Landmarks Commission and was cited as meeting criteria for both a Boston Landmark designation, City of Boston Landmark designation, and listing in the National Register of Historic Places. The two buildings have been vacant and neglected for over 20 years. The brewery building's structural integrity has been said to have been compromised, and the bottling plant is structurally sound, but also requires major repairs. That's it from me, Brad.
All right, thank you so much. I would now invite the applicant, and I'm sorry I don't know the applicant's name, or a representative of the applicant to present any information that will assist the commission in determining whether the building is historically significant or architecturally significant. You may also address the condition of the building. Your presentation should be limited to information regarding the significance and condition of the existing building and should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building for any proposed use. Can we unmute the applicant if we know who it is? Otherwise, can you raise your hand?
I see that Peter is here.
I've asked him to unmute.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
I'm not going to turn on my video because I'm actually on a low, my internet is not a high-speed internet that I'm working on, and I got the feeling I'm going to freeze my screen if I do that, if you don't mind. I can unfree video, but I just might freeze. So
Okay.
Peter,
I have
before
owned
you-
this
Before you
building.
start, thank you. You're the owner of the building?
I'm the owner of the building, yes.
Thank you. All right. Please go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just want to
No.
make sure we knew your relationship to the
So
project.
my name is Peter Zagorianakis, and I am the owner of the building. I've owned it since 2014. The entity that owns it is Heath Street Partners LLC. This building, both these buildings, pre me buying them in 2014, were demolished. The interiors were demolished, and it seems to me part of the roof was demolished. These buildings have been open probably for 9 to 10 years before I bought them to the weather. And they've been open to the weather, as staff has suggested, for probably over 20 years. We're a developer in Boston. We have done developments of historical properties before. We did the Concord Baptist Church on 201 West Brookline Street. We've also done 10 St. George Street, which was also in the South End Landmarks Commission, which we did I think a modern historical building from scratch. This building, we've evaluated it on many degrees. I can go through the photos. We have several structural engineering reports. The building is in very, very, very poor condition. Pieces of the building are falling down and falling off. The roof has collapsed on the larger building at the 123 to 127 Heath Street site, and that is completely collapsed on the floor below. The roof has started to collapse in the 117 Heath Street, but it's not as bad. The front detail of the 123, 127 building fell, I'm going to say 8 to 10 months ago, off the building. We currently have staging in front of the building to protect the sidewalk on the 123 to 127 Heath Street building. We have parts of the left side of the building are also falling off. That's falling into the yard itself. We have actually spoke with Historic Boston several years ago in 2024, had them do an evaluation to see if they thought they could develop this. And they came to the conclusion, which is the same conclusion that we came to, that the redevelopment of the existing structure is just too costly to redevelop the structures. So that's why the additional factor is ISD has issued an ordinance to demolish the building. I'm not sure if that's a subpoena or order, but they've issued an order to demolish the buildings. So we're here in front of you
Actually, requesting. Peter, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. That we looked at that order, and it was an order from, I think it was in 2015. ISD gave an order. They gave you a violation that said raise or repair the main brewery structure, 123 to 127 Heath, but there was no violation at 117 Heath, just to clarify.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So, I mean, I can go through the pictures of the building if you would like, but I think my presentation is that really the condition is beyond repair for us to develop it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right. I'm going to ask you to hang on. I'm sure commissioners will have questions, but before we do that, I'm also going to go to public comment. So members of the public will now have an opportunity to comment on the significance of the building and whether or not demolition delay should be imposed. To do so, please raise your hand in the application platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 on your phone to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person. And again, I'll just make the general reminder that comments should be limited to information regarding the structure or significance of the structure, but should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building for other proposed uses.
Brad, I was just going to say we are in the process of pulling up the current photographs that were submitted with the application.
Okay, so we'll have those when we, I'm sure, come back to questions. Liz, will you unmute people in whatever order you see them?
Yes, I am going to unmute Jeremy.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say that, to the best of my knowledge, the historic Boston recommendations, they're represented inaccurately. They did not say that 117 Heath Street should be demolished. Just they were talking about the structural condition of 123 to 127. So that was incorrect, unless there is some other information I don't know about. Also, this seems like a very clear case of demolition by neglect from the owner of the building. It's been let just sit in the elements for over 10 years since they owned it, regardless of it being let in the elements for 10 years before then. There's something you could have done in those 10 years. So I don't think this was a case of a building that was completely unsalvageable. It seems like they wanted the building to be demolished regardless of any historic significance, which it has plenty of. If you just look at it for 2 minutes, you can tell it's an extremely unique building in Boston. So I think it is pretty despicable what this developer has done, and I just wanted to let that be known. Thank you.
Jeremy, do you want to give us your full name or your affiliation for the record, or you don't have to?
Jeremy, you're still muted if you'd like to share that information.
You do need to unmute yourself, though. There you are.
My name is Jeremy Donovan. I have no affiliations with this comment. I just studied architecture and am a neighbor and care about beautiful buildings in Roxbury.
Thank you.
RJ, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I'm a neighbor. I live about 2 houses down, and I'm gonna say that this building has been falling apart and is actually dangerous to the community. The facade that you showed in your slideshow has fallen off and actually landed on cars, which is why there's now a scaffolding across the sidewalk. And that scaffolding has also been, in a windstorm, pushed out into the street and closed down the streets. I understand that this building is very pretty and was one of the first breweries in Boston, but at this point, it has a tree growing out of it and it's dangerous.
All right, thank you.
Chris?
Maybe waiting to be fully admitted.
I fully admitted him.
Okay.
Chris, you've been made co-host, so you can comment. Do you want to call another public comment? Oh, thanks, Chris.
I would just note that this is another example of demolition by neglect. And I remember what this looked like when I was in high school and what it looks like today. And frankly, we need some better resources from ISD onward so that we don't lose great buildings like this.
Other members of the public want to comment on the application?
Kartik, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead. Kartik, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the owner of one of the neighboring buildings, and you can see the building from my place. And this building is in really bad shape. All the doors and everything has come apart. You can see raccoons, rats, pests going in, trees growing out, bricks falling down. So, I mean, you just have to, you can come over to my place anytime and I can show you the problems. But yeah, I don't think it is, it can, I mean, it doesn't, I'm not an expert, but the building is in a bad shape. And these owners have taken decent care compared to what previous owners have done. They've put a fence, they've cut leaves and trees and all shrubs and all that stuff. So, and they put that thing on the sidewalk. Anyway, that's all from me. So I think the building is in bad shape. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Kartik.
Anyone else in the public wishing to comment? I'll leave the floor open to members of the public for a little while longer, but let's open it up to commissioners for comment and question.
Brad, I do want to note that we have received comments.
Okay. Let's hear from Jeff Gagno since he had his hand up, and then we'll move to public comment by writing.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to point out the obvious that this complex has been of major concern to pretty much every preservation organization in Eastern Massachusetts for a number of years now, including having been listed in 2018 as the most endangered resource in the Commonwealth by Preservation Massachusetts. So, and you know, nothing positive has happened that I can tell since. So I just want to point out people have thrown around the term demolition by neglect. And I think that that is an appropriate characterization of what's been happening with this property in the last 10 plus years.
Thanks. Before we go on to other commissioners, Chelsea, do you have the written comment or plural comments?
I do, and I'm just going to list, we have a lot of comments on these two buildings, so I'll just give you the numbers of, pros and
okay.
cons. So for 117 Heath Street, we have 6 public comments which support invoking the delay and 4 who oppose invoking the delay. For 123 to 127 Heath Street, we have 17 comments in support of invoking the delay and 1 against invoking the delay. And just a reminder, we have to vote on these separately.
All right, thank you. Justine, I see your hand up. I think you're the only one.
Sure. Thanks, Brad. I think just really to second what Jeff was saying, and I think we've seen a lot of these, and there's been many opportunities to get creative in structural rehabilitation of these buildings. There's more often a way through some creative engineering. So just another example.
I have a question for the owner, if he's still here or unmuted. What is the structural system of the building? I imagine it's a brick bearing wall, but is it heavy timber framing inside? Is it something else? Peter, are you still with us? You are muted, so you have to unmute yourself, but I think you should be able to do that since you spoke earlier.
I can't.
You can, you are. Whoops, now you're muted again. Try one more time. Okay, we
Okay,
can
great,
proceed.
thank you. This is a brick supported on exterior brick walls with wood heavy timber inside.
And the floors are
They are wooden. They
are the heavy timber floor framing still
yes, heavy
intact?
with tongue and groove flooring above them.
Decking.
Yep.
And both of those are intact, the framing and the decking on the floors?
No, that is not the case. Most of the floors are very severely damaged. Anybody walking through there could fall through the floor at any moment in time.
So the decking is damaged?
The decking is damaged. A lot of the joisting is damaged as well.
By water infiltration or from some other method?
Yeah, the roof has been open for 20+ years.
Right. And you say the roof is fully missing?
The roof has collapsed into the floor below on probably 75% of the 123 to 127 building.
And that includes the framing of the roof?
That includes the framing of the roof.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Other commissioners? Floor is open to commissioners or members of the public. Allison.
Hi, everyone. Allison Poltonis. I'm a neighbor on Lawn Street, and I believe I did the Preservation Mass application in 2018 for the endangered list. I have to say we're all very polite, but this is really an actually horrible thing that happened here, and what to say and how to react to what obviously is what everyone has said, demolition by neglect. And perhaps the commission has some ways of penalizing the owner. I don't know, but it's really kind of shocking. And certainly deconstruction has to be considered, and carefully with all the wonderful stones and old bricks. But I just have to say, this is kind of amazing that we're at this point and nothing has been done over this long period of time. I do remember neighbors' complaints going back to his ownership in the beginning when the property was not secured and there was vandalism, etc. So it's been a long history of neglect, and it's very clear, and this is kind of shocking. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea, would you like to read staff recommendation into the record?
Yes, thanks, Brad. BLC staff recommends invoking the 90-day demo delay for both of these addresses.
All right, seeing no further comment, I would accept a motion to invoke demolition delay.
I'll make that motion, Brad. Justine.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Brad, for which address? Please clarify
yeah.
the
No,
address.
you're right. I'm sorry. Let's do 123 through 127 Heath Street, which is the brewery building.
I'll second that, Brad.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo.
John's hand is raised.
Okay, we're gonna
Well
take
done.
that as a yes.
No, let's just,
I-
we need a voice vote.
Yep. Yes.
Hi, John. Thank you. Commissioner Hart,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And now we will take a similar vote on 117 Heath Street if there is a motion to invoke demolition delay. That is I believe, what Chelsea called the bottling building.
I'll
Make that
move.
motion, Brad.
Oh,
Take
I'll second then.
that's Jeffrey Haney and John Amadeo, I think.
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Hart,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that completes that matter, and we move on to the next agenda item, which is an advisory review, which, as a reminder, means we won't actually take a vote. And it is for the Mission Church Complex at 94 St. Alphonsus Street. Oh, I need to, I'm going to back up a minute. I need to read something into the record. So for both 117 and 123 Heath Street, the Boston Landmarks Commission finds that it is in the public interest that it is preferable that the buildings at 117 Heath Street and 123 through 127 Heath Street be preserved or rehabilitated rather than be demolished. Therefore, the Boston Landmarks Commission has determined that this significant building is subject to the demolition delay, and that the Commissioner of Inspectional Services shall not issue a demolition permit until August 25th, 2026, which is 90 days from this evening. The applicant shall be responsible for securing and protecting the buildings during the time that they are subject to demolition delay under Article 85. All right, now let's go on to 94 St. Alphonsus Street. Mark Lacrosse is the applicant. The proposed work includes the demolition of an existing grammar school building to construct a new grammar school building. Mark, before we ask you to begin your presentation, I'm going to ask Boston Landmarks Commission staff to review their recommendations on this project. Is that also Chelsea?
Yes, it is.
Hi.
Let me just get to that part of this, my notes. Okay. Okay, thanks, Brad. Staff notes. So this is to review the demolition of an existing building at the Mission Hill Church Complex and the construction of a new school building for the Mission Grammar School. Staff notes that demolition of the Guild building will be required to make way for a new school building. Together with the applicant, BLC staff conducted a full evaluation of the potential demolition, and after examining all alternatives, the applicant has concluded that demolition of the building is necessary. In order to achieve the applicant's program, which is a much-needed new school building for an existing established school population, staff recommends that the Boston Landmarks Commission allow demolition of the building and the construction of a new school building that is compatible with the historic church campus. I feel, Joe and I felt like we should be very clear about why we are recommending demolition of this building, where that is not normally the side of the table that we sit on. Staff explains, the considerations for this rare demolition of a building in a landmark campus are as follows. The building is not accessible and cannot easily be made so. The building is a secondary building in the hierarchy of the campus history. It was built later than the original buildings, and it was used as a shop skills guild school building. In other words, where you might learn how to do wood shop or any amount of trade learning. The building does not meet code, and the expense to bring the building into code conformance would be extraordinary. Required code would necessitate retroactively installing podium-style construction into this building. The building houses school children and poses safety concerns in the context of the current egress onto a narrow sidewalk, which is on a busy city street. Staff adds, after all of that demo consideration, staff adds that the new design for the school building, which the applicant has brought forward to staff several times, is an example of truly sympathetic modern architecture within the context of a historically significant campus. And then this is the last little bit, staff recommendations. Number one, that the commission should allow for the demolition of the existing school building when the applicants come back for their design review hearing. And number two, that this new school building is appropriately designed for its setting, and the applicants be encouraged to return to the commission for their design review hearing or another advisory review so that we can discuss all of the school building design in further detail. That's it. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Chelsea. I'm going to recognize now Mark Lacoste, who I think is making a presentation for the applicant. Mark, can you unmute yourself?
I've just made Mark co-host.
All right.
Yep.
Greetings.
Mark. Oh, there we go.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, members of the commission. My name is Mark Lacasse. I'm legal counsel to the Mission Grammar School for other regulatory matters, including the landmarks process that we've engaged with Chelsea and Joe Cornish, who have been very helpful to us, leading us to tonight's advisory review. Matthew Theismann, who is the architect for the project, is going to give the presentation. We have worked diligently to cut it to its essentials because there is a lot of material here given the location of this building and its significance as part of the Mission Church complex. But Matthew the team has worked to give you the essence of the reasons that underlie staff's recommendation and why indeed this is a very different demolition proposal. This is a very different place. This is a very important school in the Mission Hill neighborhood. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew to take us through the presentation. And we also have Ali Dutson with us, who is the principal and president of the school. And we are delighted to answer any questions about the school itself after Matthew's presentation. Matt.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Theismann. I am president of MKC Architects. I see that we're maybe seeing Sarah's screen. Sarah, will you be flipping through the presentation or should I be sharing my screen?
You can share your screen.
Great, thank you.
You have access.
Great. All right, let's do window. Okay. You see a presentation, correct?
Yes.
Great, great. So thank you, commissioners, for your time. We are here to present Mission Grammar School and to explain why replacement of the existing grammar school building is the most responsible and feasible long-term solution for this campus. We understand and respect the age of the building and the historic importance of the Mission Church complex as a whole. And we understand we are discussing potential demolition, which is always to be carefully considered. But this case is unique, which is why we're asking for an advisory review and your feedback at this stage of the proposed project. Our purpose tonight is to demonstrate that the existing grammar school is no longer suitable for an educational facility and adaptive reuse is not reasonably feasible under current code, accessibility, safety, and operational standards for an elementary school. Mission Grammar School has served the community for more than a century, and today it continues to play a vital role for children and families across Greater Boston, with the majority of the scholars coming from the surrounding neighborhood and deeper into Roxbury and Dorchester. 90% of scholars identify as children of color, and 40% of scholars speak a language other than English. The school currently serves 306 scholars, 85% of whom receive significant financial aid. The demand for this school now far exceeds the capacity of the existing building. The school needs to close that gap, expanding to 450 scholars while relocating from another building and increasing early childhood capacity in facilities that support a contemporary, child-centered educational environment. This is important context because the need for the project is not abstract. It is driven by documented enrollment demand, long wait lists, and the school's commitment to providing access to high-quality education for families who depend on it. The existing building is no longer capable of supporting that mission in a meaningful or sustainable way. Mission Grammar is not only a school, it is a long-standing civic and community institution in Roxbury Hill. Sorry. All right. In Mission Hill and Roxbury, sorry. The slide reflects the public support the school has received, including recognition from the City of Boston and an official resolution acknowledging the importance of its expansion and continued service to Boston families. We share this not simply to show support, but to underscore that the question before you today has real public consequence. The inability of the current building to meet present-day educational needs affects access, safety, and long-term viability for the children and families Mission Grammar serves. The existing school predates current codes, accessibility, and life safety standards. It has recurring system failures, poor on-street arrival conditions, misaligned levels, and an inefficient layout that limits both educational capacity and day-to-day function. Even after a full adaptive reuse study, the core issues of accessibility, circulation, drop-off, capacity, and gym space could not be resolved in any workable long-term way. This is not demolition for demolition's sake. This request comes after years of serious due diligence at extensive cost to the school. Our conclusion is that replacement is the only realistic path to provide a safe, accessible, and code-compliant, educationally appropriate building while still preserving the broader historic campus and the protected priest garden. Here we situate the grammar school within the full Mission Church complex. The Basilica, the Rectory, the annexes, and the grammar school each have their own place in the historical development of the campus. This context matters because it helps clarify that the grammar school is one somewhat minor component of a larger ensemble and not the principal architectural landmark of the site. The Basilica remains the most substantial and architecturally significant structure in the complex, followed by the historic rectory. Our proposal does not diminish that broader historic setting. Rather, it seeks to preserve the larger campus identity while addressing the one building that has become functionally obsolete. The existing building that currently houses the grammar school was constructed in 1901 and is described in the historic record as a straightforward utilitarian building with limited traditional ornament when compared with the other structures on campus. It has served as a school for many decades, but its educational use today is fragmented. Classrooms and support functions have spilled into the annex and into portions of the Basilica basement because the building itself can no longer contain the full needs of the school. That fragmented condition is important. It shows that the school has already been forced to adapt itself around the building's limitations. What exists today is not a well-functioning historic school building. It is an undersized and inefficient arrangement that has been stretched beyond its intended capacity. This slide documents the building's physical condition. The school has experienced recurring failures across core building systems, including plumbing, sewer and drainage separation, roof leaks, HVAC failures, seepage, wall cracking, and interior plaster deterioration. These are not isolated maintenance issues. They are repeated failures that interrupt daily school use and require ongoing repair. Taken together, these conditions indicate that the building has reached the end of its realistic operational life as a contemporary school building. Continued patchwork investment does not solve the deeper problem, which is that the building is failing both physically and functionally at the same time. This slide addresses the technical issue of feasibility. The existing building is classified as a type 3B construction, which is similar to the former applicant, which is masonry exterior walls and wood framing structure on the inside. And for educational occupancy, that construction type is limited to 3 stories above grade under the current code. Because the building is already 4 stories, and because any major intervention affecting more than half of the building area would trigger substantial alteration requirements, adaptive reuse quickly becomes a very invasive and costly exercise in code compliance, including the complete demolition of the first and second floors, conversion to podium construction of non-combustible materials, including new structural elements. We also studied what would be required to provide indoor physical education space, since that is required for the school program. The only feasible location within the existing building was a rooftop gymnasium. A structural analysis was commissioned, and it concluded that the building is not well suited for that addition. The proposed gym would exceed code limits without a full lateral upgrade, increase mass and seismic forces substantially, and require new braced frames, shear walls, and foundations throughout the building. In other words, to make adaptive reuse work, we would be forced into extensive demolition and reconstruction inside the existing shell at major cost and with major disruption, while still ending up with an inferior educational outcome. These existing floor plans illustrate that the deficiencies of the building are not superficial, so they are embedded in the building's basic organization. There is no accessible route to the upper floors. Primary egress is not at grade. The main entry condition is unsafe and directly exposed to street traffic. The school and rectory levels do not align. There is no dedicated indoor physical education space, and the floor plate is constrained by load-bearing walls, and the single loaded corridor arrangement is highly inefficient. What this means in practical terms is that the building does not merely need modernization. It would need to be fundamentally reworked in order to perform as a contemporary school. And even then, the inherited constraints of the footprint would continue to limit the result. Here we pull back to the camp. Let me see. No, this slide is particularly important because it shows that adaptive reuse was genuinely studied in depth. Mission Grammar undertook an exhaustive due diligence process, including a comprehensive architecture and engineering design development package at significant cost. That work tested what the best adaptive reuse scenario might look like. Even under that best case scenario, the result remains deeply compromised. The accessible route is indirect and circuitous. The shared elevator requires long detours. The rooftop gym introduces major structural burden. The connector consumes nearly 900 square feet and creates a low ceiling condition at the point of arrival. The school still retains an inefficient single-loaded organization. So the key point here is simple, that adaptive reuse was not rejected because it was inconvenient. It was rejected because even after full study, it still could not deliver a truly workable, equitable, and educationally sound solution. Here we pull back to the campus scale and show the major site-related challenges. The current school entrance is obscured and unsafe. There's no dedicated drop-off or pickup zone, so children are arriving and departing directly into street traffic along St. Alphonsus Street. At the same time, the school and the rectory floors are misaligned, which creates a serious barrier to accessibility and daily circulation. The slide also begins to show the proposed footprint and the relationship to the protected garden. So the point here is that the existing campus arrangement is not functioning safely or clearly as a school. A modest adjustment, however, in footprint can solve major operational problems with only limited impact on the landscape. This slide demonstrates what becomes possible only through demolition and replacement. By replacing the existing grammar school, we can align levels between the new building and the rectory, provide coherent accessibility throughout the campus, create a safe and dignified main entrance, improve campus security, and establish a proper drop-off area on St. Alphonsus Street. It is also important to note that the encroachment into the garden is limited and strategic. It is not a broad intrusion into a protected landscape. It is a measured adjustment that allows the building to function properly while minimizing impact. I have a few more slides. Because the complete school requires indoor physical education space, we also studied whether the gymnasium could be located elsewhere. This slide shows the alternatives that were considered, including options involving adjacent city land, remote locations, and construction within the prayer garden. Each of these was ultimately found to be not feasible due to ownership, zoning, operational difficulty, safety concerns, or conflict with protected landscape areas. This slide provides the clearest side-by-side comparison of the present condition on the left and the proposed outcome. The existing building functions with a single loaded corridor, which is inefficient and limits each floor to about 3 classrooms. The proposed building uses a double loaded corridor, which allows roughly 67% more classrooms per floor while improving circulation and overall efficiency. The proposal also supports increased student capacity, dedicated drop-off, service access, improved accessibility, and integration of a gymnasium. The final slide shows the street view today and the conceptual rendering of the proposed new grammar school alongside the renovated rectory. The intention here is to demonstrate that the campus can evolve in a way that remains coherent, respectful, and visually compatible with its setting, while also becoming significantly more functional as a school. As you may be aware, construction has commenced on the first phase of the project, approved by this commission in 2024, to allow for the campus to continue to develop. Our goal is not to erase the identity of the Mission Church complex. Our goal is to ensure that this campus can continue to serve its educational mission in a building that is safe, accessible, and worthy of the children and families who depend on it. The existing grammar school has reached a point where adaptive reuse cannot reasonably deliver that outcome. So for that reason, we believe demolition and replacement is the most responsible path forward. Again, thank you for your time. We look forward to your comments, remarks, and feedback.
All right. Sorry, I was muted. I'm going to open this up to the commission, remembering that this is an advisory review. So commissioners, this is your chance. John, please go ahead.
Sure. So, you know, this campus has a lot of valuable buildings, and we actually have already lost 2 buildings on this campus from prior reviews. And while I understand this building is that's being proposed for demolition is predominantly utilitarian, it would be good to have a sense from the owner what the condition of the other buildings remaining on the campus are and what their intentions are for the preservation or adaptive reuse of them for the future, so that we don't see any further erosion of the original fabric of this campus.
Mark, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So the crown jewel of this campus, of course, is the Basilica, and that is going to remain the Basilica for a very long time. The entire property is owned by the Redemptorist Fathers, which is an order of priests that owns the entire complex, which consists primarily of the Basilica and the rectory building along Tremont Street, where Matt reminded you that you had approved a project in that building last year, and that was to consolidate the priest living quarters because the building that was constructed for up to 60 priests now houses only about 6 priests. So project 1 is consolidation of the rectory priest living quarters into a much smaller portion of the rectory to allow for expansion of the grammar school into those portions of the rectory which the priests no longer need. And we showed you as part of that approval the significant preservation of the interior of the rectory, which includes a magnificent historic library and a chapel, all of which are being preserved. So to
Mark,
Commissioner,
would you also, if you don't mind, just explain the ownership of the buildings that I think John is referring to on Smith Street
other buildings are, yes, the other buildings.
versus your
Yeah.
versus your campus?
Yes. So, Commissioner Amadeo, to your question regarding the loss of 2 other buildings, those are not part of the Redemptorist Fathers campus, nor were they owned by the Redemptorist Fathers when that demolition occurred. So you're now seeing the slide of the mission complex that is owned by the Redemptorist Fathers, the Basilica, the rectory building / expansion of the school, and the grammar school building and the garden courtyard sort of behind all of the buildings. That is the extent of the mission church complex, and the Redemptorist Fathers bear no responsibility for the prior demolition of those other 2 buildings and are deeply, deeply committed to the preservation and maintenance of this very important historic property, including the construction of the new grammar school, which is being made possible by very generous family foundations in the city of Boston. And I'd love for you to just hear 2 minutes from Ellie Dutson, who's the principal of the school, who can articulate the importance of this school and this campus to this important historic campus in the city of Boston, if she could. Allie?
I'm going to ask you to hang on with that. I
Okay.
want to give other commissioners a chance to
Sure
weigh
thing.
in here, and then we'll go to kind of public comment.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
I see you searching for your mute button, Jeff Gagno.
Sorry. I just want to compare and contrast the thoroughness of this presentation, where we're being asked to consider this demolition for what seemed to be compelling use reasons, as compared to the last situation where, for many, many years, nothing happened, and that's why we're in the case that we're in now. So I appreciate the proactive approach that this building owner has taken to really study this carefully and to, come up with some pretty, I personally think, are compelling reasons why this simply doesn't meet the needs of a modern school anymore. So I just want to thank the team for that, and to acknowledge that sometimes you have to do planning and it often results in a better outcome, even if we're losing potentially a historic resource in the process. So thank you for that.
I'll just say for myself, I imagine you'll come back at least, well, you will come back for full design review, but perhaps another advisory review. There's a little bit of information and inspiring images of your proposed building, but I think we will want to get into that in more detail. And it's probably not helpful to add comments about what we're seeing tonight, since it's not fully presented.
Understood, and couldn't agree more. We just didn't want to put the cart before the horse.
Anybody else on the commission? And I'm going to take public comment. Members of the public have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment should be limited to 2 minutes per person, should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping, issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside the commission's purview. If there are people making public comment that are maybe less familiar with this process, this is an advisory review process, so not a voting matter tonight. There may be another advisory review process, and then the project actually goes to a vote at design review. So there are several more steps. And as I said, maybe in my previous comment, and the applicant seems to have agreed, it's perhaps early to make substantive comments on the design of the proposed building. Liz, I see Ali.
Yes, I've asked her to unmute. Go ahead, Ali.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Dutson. I am the president of Mission Grammar School. Apologies, my video will not unmute. I'm not sure why, but great to be with you all this evening. And I just wanted to very formally thank the commission for hearing more about our plans and our design. It has been a great honor to plan and coordinate this, but really it has been such a coming together of our community in service to what this community of Mission Hill is, and finding ways to celebrate that and share that and extend that and make sure that it outlasts all of us. So this project has really been a deep dive into what is possible to make sure this place remains as a school and meets the needs of our scholars and really celebrates who we serve and building, as Matthew so beautifully said, the school our children deserve. So I just wanted to thank everyone for sharing their feedback and the acknowledgement of how deeply invested we are in making sure we get this right. So thank you to all of you on the commission.
Anyone else in the public? I feel a little bad for the applicant that you're not getting a lot of sort of design comment from the commission. I will again say on my behalf or add to what I said before, which when you do come back, I think the garden and how you're proposing to modify the garden is also an important consideration. So we'd love to see more about that.
Brad, Allison has her hand raised.
Allison, hi.
Yes, hi, I hope you can hear me again. Allison Pultinus, and I was really appreciative of all that Mission Grammar does for the community, and really hope that they can raise the money that they need for a beautiful, beautiful building. And I really support the school. Did want to say that. Talking about the history of the Guild building, it's really a gender issue. It was built for the women of the parish. So that to me explains the bare bones utilitarian appearance. Whereas St. Alphonsus Hall, the building we lost on Smith Street, was the men's clubhouse and was truly a landmark in itself. This building was not built as a school. What is still on Smith Street is the original Mission Grammar School, and that is now vacant. So concerns about that building are deserved, I feel like, because we don't know the future there. But your comment, Brad, about the garden is important, and I agree that encroachment could be a concern, but I truly support Mission Grammar getting the beautiful building that students deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I think we'll just close public comment and close out this agenda item. I hope you've heard a few things that were encouraging and helpful, and we look forward to seeing the project.
Should we sort of recap what we might need to see for, like, it's difficult because this is almost like two projects, right? It's a could we please demo this building, and then it's also we have a new building to consider. So should we?
My sense is, and maybe I'm just misreading the silence, that there's not a lot of opposition to demolition, assuming that you're going to proceed at some orderly pace to construction. I don't think anyone wants to see it demolished and then left vacant. And I think I don't want to speak for other commissioners. I speak for myself, but I'm encouraged by the design that I see so far, and I look forward to seeing more.
Brad, I'm sorry, I should have spoken up earlier. I just have a quick question as it relates to the demo. And this may have been captured already. Are we demolishing the below grade foundation, assuming there is one, or are we building on top of the existing foundation?
The intent is to demolish the below grade foundation.
Okay. When you come back, can we understand how that's going to encroach onto the garden area
Absolutely.
for that demolition, that cutback?
Absolutely. Yes, that's a
Okay.
great comment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
also.
I think maybe Justine's asking not only like how much does the new building encroach on the garden, but what consideration of construction operations has there
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So trees that need protecting, things like that, we should be looking at next time. Great.
All right. I would now recognize Elizabeth Sherva to take us into staff updates.
And just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad. I'm going to keep it brief this evening. Our next landmark commission hearing will be on Tuesday, June 9th at 6 p.m. And just wanted to remind everybody as we head into summer, I wanted to ask each of you to take a look at your summer calendars and your scheduled vacations and use our RSVP spreadsheet to let staff know if you're able to attend the BLC hearings over the summer. Just to highlight some of those dates, like I said, June 9th, June 23rd, July 14, July 28, August 11, and August 25. We do, plan a projected agenda and of course, do need a quorum to conduct business. So if you could help us out by getting that RSVP spreadsheet updated, we can then plan accordingly. That's all I have for this evening, Brad.
All right. Any commissioners have any news to share? Commission-related questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, Brad.
And is there a second, please?
I'll second, John.
Thank you, John. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Brad.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Good night.